Yo, hey everybody, it's me, Mr. Green, and today I wanted to quickly talk about Godzilla because Godzilla's massively in the news this weekend for some reason, and on top of that, I have this neglected, unfinished review of Godzilla SSP I've been sitting on for like months at this point, and I kind of wanted to get that done because this year it came back in Super Robot Wars, so maybe encourage me on that, and I might finish that eventually. Anyway, so yeah, Godzilla had his birthday or something this weekend, who the hell knows, but... So we got a bunch of random tangents on Godzilla all over the place this weekend. First of all, Godzilla Minus One. Let's start with that. It seems like it's getting a sequel because Takashi Yamazaki earned an Oscar and brought victory and glory to Toho and Godzilla. It seems like Minus One is getting a direct sequel. No one knows what it's going to be called. Maybe it's going to be called Minus Two. I'm just going to call it Minus Two today. So yeah, it's supposedly going to be a direct sequel, and there's a juicy rumor that at the end of the movie, there's a little bit of a teaser where Noriko is infected with Godzilla cells and she somehow survives the whole Godzilla attack. So the batshit crazy conspiracy theory right now is that Noriko will eventually turn into Biollante and take revenge on Godzilla. And yeah, I would love that. That would be fucking awesome. I really just think Biollante is Godzilla's greatest foe, and I would love to see a second Biollante story set in the 1940s where Minus One gets into a big kaiju battle and just to see the extent of what Yamazaki would do with modern CGI in depicting Biollante. I think that would be sick as hell. Now, meanwhile, as some sort of tie-in for Godzilla Day, we got this new interesting clip of Godzilla Minus One just cruising all over Southeast Asia, mostly Singapore. I have no idea what the reason for this is, why it was made, why it exists. Apparently, it's just to celebrate both Singapore and Godzilla in the same commercial. But the interesting thing is at the end of it, Godzilla turns green and has this funky new green glow. Now this looks cool as hell to me, but no one is really sure what to make of it. Is this our first look at the Minus Two Godzilla? Or is it just some weird Singapore pride flag? I don't know. I honestly don't know a lot about Singapore. Singapore is not my part of town, but if you know what the reason is for this, if you know why Godzilla would be green for Singapore, let me know in the comments. Thank you. Alright, so the big news that I actually want to talk about in this video is that Godzilla vs. Kong is coming back around in another big goddamn Monarch Cinematic Universe movie. I gotta say, the Monarch Cinematic Universe has really gone the distance. It's the only cinematic universe outside the MCU that has stuck around from the age of every single movie studio trying to make their own cinematic universe. RIP Dark Universe. Now, point out that there's 6 movies strong in this one now, and it's almost gone as long as Heisei Godzilla in that aspect. Although technically Kong Skull Island was its own thing, but it's still included in those. So yeah, we had Godzilla, Godzilla King of the Monsters, Kong Skull Island, Godzilla vs. Kong, Godzilla vs. Kong 2, where it had Shimo and Scar, and now we've arrived at the 6th movie in this chain of events, Godzilla vs. Kong: The Supernova. And over the weekend, everyone lost their collective shit because Supernova is such a vague title that means literally nothing. So, of course, therefore, it means everything. And so literally everyone was throwing every fucking theory into the wood chipper this weekend, trying to figure out what the fuck is going on. Now, first of all, I just mentioned Biollante in Minus Two. I might as well mention Biollante in this movie. There was initially a batshit insane Biollante theory because everyone just wants Godzilla to fight Biollante again. The theory on this one was that the end of the world would happen and Billy Bobby Brown, through some twist of fate, would turn into Biollante in some convoluted twist. Because she was in 2 of these movies and people want to see her again. But it's safe to say that wouldn't happen because she's just I don't know, too big a star for that, and they wrote her out of the last movie. Here's a quick rundown of the most likely suspects that Godzilla and Kong will be fighting in this movie. I'm going to list these from most likely to least likely. The top of the list, everyone's favorite, is the B-rank monster Gigan, for the simple reason that the Supernova logo has a red lens flare in the middle of it, and everyone is suspecting that the red lens flare is a signal for Gigan, who has a big red eye. Also, in a callback to the first Monarch Godzilla, this guy here created this sensational Gigan redesign where Gigan would actually be an evolution of the Mutos from that first movie. I could totally get behind that. That would actually be fucking sick. Otherwise, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of Gigan. It's hard to justify him. In my opinion, Gigan is always a sidekick monster. Even when we got like a new Gigan in Final Wars, he was still like a sidekick for like Def Ghidorah. The issue I have with Gigan is just always this like second fiddle monster who never really like gets his chance to shine. Even like Godzilla versus Gigan, like Ghidorah showed up and like outshined him. Like, that's insane. Even in his premiere movie, he was downplayed against King Ghidorah coming back for revenge. So it's possible that Gigan is just here as a side dish and not the main entree, which brings us to popular option number 2 for the main entree, Space Godzilla. So personally, I don't love Space Godzilla. I think he's too derivative of Godzilla. He's just a weird fucking character that's a more evil Godzilla from space with these like strange crystals, and he's like somehow stronger than the original Godzilla, but everyone hates him for being an abomination. So he usually gets defeated by like a coalition of the Earth's monsters. There's been a lot of conspiracy theories that all of the Monarch Godzilla movies were this like long play leading up to Space Godzilla. But I kind of was really hoping they'd fight Biollante before they got to Space Godzilla, because Biollante is technically like included in Space Godzilla's origin. Anyway, there's actually 2 big pieces of evidence that indicate Space Godzilla. The title supernova just being a general space term. There's also this weird like binary code in the trailer. People have been trying to translate this binary code, and I think they've gotten it not 100% correct, but it relatively translates to read Space and Godzilla and Kong. So with those like 3 aspects, that made some people wonder like, well, that means like the bad guys are obviously Space Godzilla and Space Kong. Yeah, there's actually a lot of people throwing out that Space Godzilla will be teamed up with Space Kong and King Kong will fight Space Kong. If Space Kong really does happen, I will honestly laugh my ass off. I think Space Kong is an insane idea. Space Kong aside, though, it's also possible that the code is just mistranslated, and it really just means that Godzilla and Kong are going into space and literally fighting just something else in space. There's always a chance it's a Monarch movie original monster like Muto again. But yeah, if it's something else, people are just like not good at cracking this code and like getting ambiguous with the meaning of what it all means. Some other monsters that could be the possibility, a lot of people want Monster X, aka Def Ghidorah or Kaiser Ghidorah, or fuck you, just Ghidorah again. I don't know. I'm pretty sure they're not going to do Ghidorah again unless they throw out like Mecha Ghidorah as like a minor distraction. But yeah, for all those reasons, I don't see them jumping onto like Ghidorah's cousin or Ghidorah's brother or Ghidorah's father or any like relatives of the Ghidorah family like that. Another theory was that Destroya was in the cards. I would like to see Destroya again, due to this theoretically being the last Godzilla Monarch movie. But these movies keep making money, so I guess WB is obligated to keep making them. And Destroya is probably going to come down later down the line. The Destroya is mostly just backed up by people misremembering Godzilla vs. Destroya, thinking that Godzilla died at the end in a supernova. But that's not what happened. It wasn't a supernova. Godzilla died at the end in a nuclear meltdown with like some tangent of the oxygen destroyer and his skin fell off. Anyway, so then there's a theory that Hedorah was coming up too because people love Hedorah. Hedorah is also very high on the wish list for monsters that just need another chance. There's also a big chance that Hedorah is in -2 as well. I would say if Godzilla -2 doesn't throw out Biollante, Hedorah would be like my number 2 pick for the monster in Godzilla -2 for the bad guy. The hint making people suggest Hedorah is that the red color on the supernova font could be indicative of Hedorah's red eyes. But then after that, we get into the obscure options. So literally people can take the space clue from the binary code and run in basically any direction with it. So then we go to the random obscure no chance options. Starting on this list, number 1 is Orga. I'm saying no to Orga because I don't like Orga. Orga is like overall an unpopular kaiju. At the same time, he did technically only have a handful of minutes of screen time at the end of Godzilla 2000, so he could redeem himself by doing better in a new movie. But yeah, I just don't think like anyone like gives a shit about Orga. There's like no nostalgia for him, so like if he came back, like I don't think anyone would be happy about it. Number 2 in the so crazy it would be awesome category is actually Ishiro Honda's Dogora, an atmospheric kaiju, a unique jellyfish kaiju that hasn't been seen since 1964. That would actually be a unique and awesome kaiju to pull out of the vaults. It's technically obscure enough that I think a lot of people don't know about it, But it did have a split-second cameo in that bad Godzilla anime from 2018, so I technically think it is in play. I just don't think anyone would actually appreciate it because it's kind of a nothing kaiju because it's just like green tentacles in space. But yeah, with the space clue, literally any other space monster is on the table. We could get Space Mogira from the Mystrions. I guess Space Mogira has about as good a chance of Orga. Also, a lot of people are throwing out Bagon. I don't know why it always comes back to Bagon, but I gotta tell you guys, no chance in hell it's Bagon. No one gives a shit about Bagon. I think the only reason Bagon's back in play is that the original 1990s Space Godzilla started out with Space Godzilla being Bagon, but then Bagon was canceled and replaced by Space Godzilla. Because even in the 90s, people didn't give a shit about Bagon, and Bagon is forever trapped on the Super Nintendo. If you want to know what Bagon is, go get a Super Nintendo. Going into the even more obscure options, X from Outer Space, also known as Gila Lala. No one fucking knows about Gila Lala. Gila Lala is not coming back. Gila Lala appeared once in 1967, and then never again except one time he was used in a commercial for a fucking business meeting. And then we got some people throwing out that it could be the Space Amoeba, which turned into a giant squid named Gezera. Some people call it Yog, the monster from space. No one wants to see Godzilla fight a giant cuttlefish. I'm sorry. So anyway, that about covers it. But also at the same time, also unrelated for Godzilla Day again, we got this new Funko Pop of Super Pink Godzilla and Super Blue Mecha Godzilla. So maybe those are characters in the movie. No chance in hell. These are just characters that Funko Pops made up for meaningless additional Funko Pops. But hey, that's another conspiracy theory too, I guess. So yeah, overall, what do you guys think? Are you guys Team Gigan, Team Space Godzilla, Team both? There's actually a good chance it could be both of them. I think if it is both of them, that would make the most sense because I'm honestly not that thrilled about Space Godzilla or Gigan. But if you put them together, I feel like it could be like an interesting team up of like these loser monsters who like never stood out on their own volition. Anyway, yeah, what do you guys want Godzilla to fight? Let me know in the comments. Actually, yeah, it would make sense if it was Space Godzilla and Gigan together because then Kong would have someone to fight. Kong could fight Gigan. I've never seen King Kong fight Gigan. Kong's got to fight someone too, right? Because I sure as hell am not expecting Space Kong, But yeah, in the last movie, it was a pretty even matchup between Kong and Scar King and Godzilla and Shimo. So yeah, I'm expecting Kong to have some sort of dance partner because Scar King's not coming back. All right, yeah, let me know what you guys think about, and probably my next video is going to be thinking about serious problems again, unless I actually commit to that Godzilla SSP review. All right, good luck, Godzilla. We're cheering you on.